Good afternoon, students. Welcome back to the revision class. So, ನಿಮಗೆ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಯಾವ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಈ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಲೈನ್ and motion in a plane. So board exam motion in a straight line ali 7 marks ಇದೆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್. So motion in a plane 11 marks ಇದೆ. So ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ motion in a straight line ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ಸ್. So xt ಗ್ರಾಫ್, vt ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಮತ್ತೆ at ಗ್ರಾಫ್ಸ್ ಏನಿತ್ತು ಆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ನ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇನ್ ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ ಆಲ್ ಆರ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಇದೆ. So motion in a plane ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್ ನ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. So ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು study, right? So motion in a straight line ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ 7 marks ವರೆಗೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. motion in a plane ಅಲ್ಲಿ 11 marks. So total 18 marks. So minimum passing board exam ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ 21 marks ಇದೆ. Out of 21 you covered almost 18 marks. So ಎರಡು ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ತರೋಗಿ ರೆಡಿ ಆದ್ರೆ so you get easily 18 marks. So overall topics na study ಮಾಡೋದು. So motion in a straight line. So starts from distance, or we call this one as path length. So ನಮಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕರೀಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಅದನ್ನ path length ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕರೀಬಹುದು, right? So next one is the displacement. Next, speed. So in this speed again we have the types of speed. So in the uniform speed, variable speed, average speed. Next, and the last one is instantaneous speed, right? So speed and types of speed. So ನಿಮಗೆ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ 7 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 1 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡಬಹುದು, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಇಸ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ. So velocity definition along with its types, that is uniform velocity, variable velocity. Uniform velocity is nothing but the constant velocity, right? So next, average velocity, and the last one is instantaneous velocity, right? So the last topic is acceleration, definition of the acceleration and types of acceleration, uniform acceleration, variable acceleration, next instantaneous acceleration. So these are the main topics, right? So along with the graphs na ಹೇಳಿದಂಗೆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಇಂದ ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಇಂದ ಅದನ್ನ ರಿಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಈಸ್ equations of motion. So in the equations of motion we have three equations of motion. One is s is equals to ut plus half at square, v is equals to u plus at, then v square minus u square is equals to 2as. So these equations of the motion we need to derive by using graphical method. So these two topics ನಮಗೆ ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಇಂದ ಬರೋದು, right? So ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ starts from distance. So distance ಇಂದ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ distance or path length. So starts from the definition. So what is distance or path length? So it is the actual distance covered by an object, so that we call as the distance or path length. So path length ಮತ್ತೆ distance के definition ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ actual distance covered by the object, right? So that we call as the distance, or we call that one as a path, right? So again, including into the definition, two more we need to study. That one is distance is a scalar quantity, right? So key points on the distance is a scalar quantity, and the second one important is SI unit is meter, right? So these two about the distance. So one more point is it is always positive, right? So distance ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವೇನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸ್ಕೇಲಾರ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ, SI unit of a distance is meter and it is always positive. So ಇದಿಷ್ಟು ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್, right? So distance ಗೆ definition first ನಾವು define ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ the actual distance or actual path covered by an object, so that we call as a distance or displacement, right? So it is a scalar quantity, SI unit of a distance is meter and it is always positive, right? So next, displacement. Definition of the displacement, it is defined as the shortest distance between the initial position and to the final position, right? So that we call as the displacement. So displacement na yav ತರ define ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ it is the shortest distance between initial position and to the final position, so that we call as the displacement. So displacement ಅಲ್ಲಿ 3 points na ನಾವು define ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ it is a vector, right? So first point is it is a vector. So here also its SI unit is meter, right? So one more point is it is either positive or negative or it may be zero, right? So these are the 3 points about the displacement. So if in case, so maximum possible cases andre mention the differences between the distance and displacements on the possible question. So frequent agi keltane iro questions andre difference between distance and displacement. So difference between anta ಹೇಳಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ we need to write the definition. So 2 marks ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ 2 differences ಬರಿಬೇಕು. So 3 marks ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ 3 differences. So maximum 3 marks ಕೇಳೋದ್ರಿಂದ one we need to write the definition of distance and displacement, so that becomes the first point. So second point, it is a scalar quantity, that is for the distance, and it is a vector for the displacement. So second point title. And the third point is it is always positive, and here it is either positive, negative or zero. So maximum 3 differences ಬೇಕು. So difference ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು include ಆಗಲ್ಲ SI unit, because both having the same SI unit, that is meters, right? So one more important point which relates between the distance and displacement is distance is always greater than or equal to the displacement, right? So ಇವೆರಡಕ್ಕೂ ರಿಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ distance is always greater than or equal to displacement, right? So individually now distance study ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. Definition, it is a scalar and it is its unit is meter and it is positive. Displacement definition, it is a vector, SI unit is meter and it is either positive, negative or zero. So the relation between the distance and displacement, so distance is always greater than or equal to the displacement. That means displacement ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, displacement ಗಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ whenever the object will move in a same direction. So object same direction ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ that means motion in a straight line. So ಒಂದೇ direction ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ so ಅಂತ ಟೈಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ distance ಮತ್ತೆ displacement ಎರಡು ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? So this is about the distance and displacement. So ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ maximum possible ಇರೋದು differences. So next, speed. Definition of the speed, it is defined as the rate of change of distance, or it is defined as the ratio of distance by time, so that we call as the speed. So speed ಗೆ ನಾವು ಎರಡು ತರ ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. Speed is defined as rate of change of distance, that is it is the ratio of distance by time taken, that we call as the speed. So speed get defined ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ rate of change of distance to the time taken, or it is the ratio of the distance to the time taken that we call as the speed, right? So its SI unit is meter per second, right? So ಇದರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ electronic definition ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ದಂಗೆ next its SI unit is meter per second. Meter is for the distance and time is for the second. So meter per second, and it is a scalar quantity, right? So idu three important points about the speed. So definition, SI unit, either it is a scalar or vector, so speed is a scalar quantity. So next, come to the types of speed. So types of speed is uniform speed. So uniform speed is the speed remains constant at each and every point during its motion. So that type of motion we call as uniform speed, right? So uniform speed ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಅದರ speed value ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ its motionally always remains constant ಇರುತ್ತೆ. For example, if an object is traveling from point A to point B, so at each and every point its speed is always constant. So initially the object is moving with speed some 5 second. So at each point its value is 5 meter per second, 5 meter per second, and at B is also 5 meter per second, right? So speed constant ittu andre antaduna ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ uniform speed or constant speed. So ಇದಕ್ಕೆ another name ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ constant speed. So define uniform speed anta kelbodu, right? So uniform speed is speed of an object remains constant during its motion, so that speed we call as uniform speed, right? So each and every point kuda speed enirutte namage change irutte. So athwa the distance covered by an object with the same distances cover in same interval of time. So distance na same interval alli cover ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, so same time ತಗೊಳುತ್ತೆ same distance cover ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ. So ಅಂತದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ uniform speed. So ಎರಡು ತರನು ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. That means it covers equal distances in equal interval of time. So equal distance means, so from A to C, C to D, D to E. So the distance between A to C is 2 meter, C to D is 2 meter, D to E is 2 meter, and E to B is 2 meter, right? So the time taken to cover from A to C is 1 second, C to D is 1 second, D to E is 1 second, and E to B is 1 second, right? So if you define uniform speed, so uniform speed it covers equal distances in equal interval of time. So 2 meter na 1 second cover ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ next 2 meter ಕೂಡ 1 second ಅಲ್ಲಿ cover ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So ಅಂತದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ uniform speed. That means it covers equal distances in equal interval of time. Next, variable speed, or another name for it is non-uniform speed. So variable speed ge ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ non-uniform speed. That means speed is varying during its motion. So speed value ಏನಾಗ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ increase ಆಗಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ decrease ಆಗಬಹುದು. So increase and decreasing during its motion, so that we call as variable speed or non-uniform speed. So other way that ನಾವು define ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ it covers equal distances in unequal interval of time. So unequal interval of time means, so time taken to reach from A to C is 1 second. So the same distance it covers from C to D is 2 seconds, right? So distance ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ same ಇದೆ, but time ತಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಏನಿದೆ change ಇದೆ. So each time the time varies, then we call that one as variable speed. So another, it covers unequal distances in equal interval of time, right? So A to B is 1 meter and C to B is 2 meter. So A to C it will take 1 second, C to B it will take 1 second. So distance ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ equal ಇಲ್ಲ, variable distances ಇದೆ. So A to C 1 meter na 1 second ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. So same 1 second ಅಲ್ಲಿ 2 meter na ಕವರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. That means, so distance vary ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, time same ಇದೆ. In this case distance same ಇದೆ, time vary ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ. So ಈ ಎರಡು ಕೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ವೇರಿಯಬಲ್ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಅಥವಾ ನಾನ್ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, right? So next, average speed. So average speed is the total distance covered by the object to the total time taken. So that we call as the average speed. So average speed is always denoted by, so speed ge s, speed ge ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ v ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ So average speed is denoted by V bar, or we can write that one as V average. So here to denote V bar or V average, that is equals to total distance to the total time taken. So total distance by total time taken. So that one we call as the average speed or velocity. So here we are discussing the speed. So average speed is denoted by V bar or V average, that is equals to total distance by total time taken. So example consider model. So total distance covered is 1 plus 2 divided by total time taken is 1 second plus 1 second, that is 1 plus 1. So 3 divided by 2. So average speed of the vehicle is 1.5 meter per second, right? So the speed for A to C is 1 meter per second, speed from C to B is 2 meter per second, right? So average speed also we can define as 1 plus 2 divided by 2, right? So here we taken V1, speed 1, V2, right? So V average, that is equals to V average in terms of speed. So either in terms of distance only. So this is in terms of speed. So average speed, that is equals to V1 plus V2 divided by 2. So this is the relation in terms of speed. This is the relation in terms of distance. Or we write this one as T3 and so on, right? So either next continue up to plus x4 plus x5 divided by plus t4 plus t5. So v1 plus v2 plus v3 divided by 3 plus v4 divided by 4, right? So this is mathematical relation. Average find out ಮಾಡೋದು ಯಾವ ತರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ? So 10 numbers ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ adding 10 numbers divided by 10, then we get the average of 10 numbers. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಅಷ್ಟೇ average of two velocities find out ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ so two velocities add ಮಾಡಿ divided by 2. Average of three velocities ನ find ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ adding of three velocities divided by 3, right? So this is about the average speed. So average speed ಗೆ ಎರಡು relation ಇದೆ. We can use either in terms of velocities or in terms of distance, right? Next is instantaneous speed. So instantaneous speed is the speed at a particular instant of time, so that we call as the instantaneous speed. So ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು object traveling from A to B ಇದೆ, so we need to find the speed of the vehicle at t is equals to some 1 second. So ಈ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಏನು ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ನ ಮೆಜರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವೋ ಸೊ ಅಂತ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ನ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ instantaneous speed, right? So this is all about the speed. So speed formula, SI unit, it is a scalar quantity and types of speed. So ಈ ಎಲ್ಲಾ types of speed unit ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ same, that is meter per second. So different speed get different unit iralla, so it all comes under the speed, right? So next, velocity. So velocity is defined as rate of change of displacement, or it is the ratio of the displacement by time taken. So that we call as the velocity, right? So velocity is denoted by V, that is equals to rate of change of displacement, that is displacement by time taken. So this is the mathematical relation and also the definition. So definition of the velocity is rate of change of displacement to the time taken, so that we call as the velocity. So again here SI unit of velocity is meter per second. So displacement ke meter is that, time taken ke second is that, so SI unit is meter per second, right? So it is a vector quantity. So speed namge scalar iddu, but velocity enide namge vector quantity, right? So speed is always positive. So so speed is always positive. because distance is always positive, hence speed is always positive. So here displacement is positive, negative or zero, hence velocity is either or negative or it may be zero, right? So ಇಲ್ಲಿ velocity ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಇರಬಹುದು, ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ zero ಕೂಡ ಇರಬಹುದು, right? So second important questions ಅಂದ್ರೆ definition of speed ಅಥವಾ definition of velocity ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ write the differences between the speed and velocity. So speed and velocity means again maximum 3 marks. We need to write the 3 points, right? So first we need to write the definition of velocity. So second point is speed is scalar, velocity is a vector quantity, and the third point is speed is always positive and velocity is either positive, negative or zero. So 2 marks ikkedidre 2 points, 3 marks ikkedidre 3 points, right? So important speed and velocity differences, distance ಮತ್ತೆ displacement ಗೆ differences ಈ chapter ಅಲ್ಲಿ maximum differences ಬರೋದ್ರಿಂದ you need to concentrate more on differences. So ನೀವು differences ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ so definition ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಕೇಲರ್ ಅಥವಾ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೂಡ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ. So overall topics cover ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, right? So next types of velocity. So first one is uniform velocity. So uniform velocity again is it. So during its motion, its velocity remains constant. So that type of motion we call as uniform velocity or constant velocity. So ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರದ್ದು ಈಚ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಅದರದ್ದು ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಏನಿರಬೇಕು ನಮಗೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅಂತ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿನ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಅಥವಾ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ, right? So in other words, it covers equal displacement in equal interval of time, so that position. So differences between the final position to the initial position and the time difference, so that we taken as the average velocity, right? So v bar or v average, that is equals to xf minus xi divided by t2 minus Tx. So this gives for the relation for the average velocity, and this is the relation for the average speed. So average velocity ಮತ್ತೆ average speed ಗೆ ಎರಡು ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಇದೆ. So almost same ತರ ನಾವು ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ, right? So next, instantaneous velocity. So again it is similar to that of the instantaneous speed. So we find the speed velocity at a particular instant of time, so that velocity we call as instantaneous velocity, right? So v instantaneous ನಮಗೆ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಇರೋದು ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಗೆ ನಾವು ರಿಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಗೆ ರಿಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ. v instantaneous, that is equals to limit delta t tends to 0, that is delta x divided by delta t, that is change in displacement to the change in time taken. So x f minus x I na navenanta barkonತೀವಿ delta x divided by delta t, right? So that is limit delta t tends to 0, delta x by delta t, that is equals to, it is in the differential form dx by dt, right? So ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ ಒಂದು motion equation ಕೊಟ್ರೆ, so at any particular instant of time we can easily find the velocity of an object at that instant of time, right? So that is for the instantaneous velocity, and this is the relation. So limit to 0, delta x by delta, ಇದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಇಯರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಟಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಷಿಯಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಈ ತರ ಬರ್ಕೊಂತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ, ರೈಟ್? So up to now this is the formula for the instantaneous velocity, right? So again all these velocities, the SI unit is same, that is meter per second, right? So speed ಮತ್ತು velocity almost same ಇರುತ್ತೆ, but direction variable velocities ಅಲ್ಲಿ one more point. If the direction, so velocity is vector quantity, it has both the magnitude and direction. If the direction of the object changes, then also the velocity changes, so also we call as variable velocity. So variable velocity is the 3 points barutte. One, unequal distances in equal interval of time. The second, equal distances in unequal interval of time. If the direction of an object changes, then also the velocity changes, so that type of velocity we call variable velocity, right? So ಅದು ಒಂದು extra point in variable velocity. So important ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ average velocity. average velocity. So problem solve ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ average velocity ಗೆ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ average ಇದು ಮತ್ತೆ instantaneous velocity is also important. So ತುಂಬಾ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಬರೋದು instantaneous velocity ಮೇಲೆ, right? So this is about the velocity. So next topic is the acceleration, right? So acceleration, again, it is defined as it is the rate of change of velocity. So that we call as acceleration, and acceleration is denoted by letter A. A is equals to, it is defined as the rate of change of velocity, that is velocity by time taken, right? So acceleration is defined as rate of change of velocity, that we call as acceleration. So rate of change under always it is with respect to time. So then again, rate of change of velocity with respect to time and the necessity is directly we can say rate of change of velocity is called as acceleration, right? ಸೊ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಬರೀಬೇಕು. ಈ ತರ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಬರೀಬೇಕು. ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್. ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಫ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಕ್ಸಲರೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ a is equals to v by t ಅಥವಾ a is equals to velocity by time ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ತರ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ತರ ಇರಬೇಕು, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ SI ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಕ್ಸಲರೇಷನ್ ಇಸ್ meter per second square, because velocity ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ SI ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಏನಿದೆ meter per second. so time ಗೆ second ಇದೆ. so second denominator ಹೋಗೋದ್ರಿಂದ s square ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. so SI ಯೂನಿಟ್ is meter per second square, right? so again it is a vector, because velocity is a vector, hence acceleration we getting, so that is also a vector. so acceleration has both the magnitude and direction, right? So types of acceleration: uniform acceleration. So uniform acceleration is change in velocity is always remains same. So that acceleration we call as uniform acceleration, right? So consider an example for uniform acceleration. So an object is traveling from A to D. So initially the object velocity v is 0. So initially rest is there. So next, as it moves, it changes its velocity to 2 meter per second. Then when it reaches to C, its velocity is 4 meter per second. Then it reaches to D, its velocity is 6 meter per second. So velocity ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನಮಗೆ increase ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದೆ as velocity increases. So from the definition, change in velocity, that is rate of change of velocity with respect to time. So rate of change in velocity is nothing but difference in velocity. So difference in velocity is 2 minus 0, we getting 2 meter per second square, right? Per unit time. So each interval of time is 1 second. So uniform means change in velocity in equal interval of time. So that we call as uniform velocity. So ella interval of time ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ 1 second ಇದೆ. So change in velocity 2 minus 0 is 2 divided by 1. So we get 2 meter per second square. So here also change in velocity between the points is C and B, that is 4 minus 2. Again we getting 2 meter per second square, right? So change in velocity between D and C, here also 6 minus 4, we getting 2 meter per second square, right? So that means the acceleration remains same. So acceleration ella kadegu estiದೆ ನಮಗೆ 2 ಇದೆ. So that means constant acceleration. So constant acceleration means change in velocity remains the same at each interval. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ change in velocity 2 meter per second ಇದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ change in velocity 2 meter per second ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ change in velocity 2 meter per second ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಂತ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್, ಅಂತ ಆಕ್ಸಲರೇಷನ್ ನ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಕ್ಸಲರೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಕ್ಸಲರೇಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ So an object is moving with uniform acceleration. That means its velocity is either increasing at regular interval or it may decreasing at regular interval. So either increasing. So in the velocity increase after in a regular interval 2 meter per second. Observe model 0, 2, 4, 6. Right? So E order initially 6 meter per second is there. So it is in the increasing order. So decreasing order if the object is coming from D to A. So initially 6 meter per second at point C 4 meter, point B 2 meter. That means regular interval velocity decrease either the velocity may increase or decrease at a regular interval of time. So that case we call that one as uniform acceleration. Uniform acceleration and uniform velocity is difference there. Uniform velocity at each point velocity uniform acceleration andre change in velocity at each point same right? So acceleration velocity 2 uniform acceleration right? Variable acceleration, so converse for the uniform acceleration. So different time interval velocity change in velocity. So 0 to 2 already some 6. So here some 7. So change in velocity 2 meter per second square here, 4 meter per second square here, 1 meter per second square. So change in velocity vary ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋದಂಗೆಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ acceleration ಕೂಡ vary ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So ಅಂತ acceleration ನಾವು variable acceleration, right? So either change in velocity at irregular interval or at regular interval. So ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನಮಗೆ ಸಿಗೋ acceleration ಏನಿದೆ variable acceleration. So variable acceleration ಯಾವಾಗ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ one more condition, that is when the object changes its direction of motion, right? So ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು object its motion ಅಲ್ಲಿ direction change ಮಾಡ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ ಕಡೆ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡೋದು variable acceleration. So as direction the acceleration also changes, that means we call that one as variable acceleration. So again instantaneous acceleration, we need to find the acceleration at a particular instant of time, that is at some t is equals to 4 seconds. If you find the acceleration, then that acceleration we call as instantaneous acceleration. Again by the same relation, a is equals to limit delta t tends to 0 delta v divided by delta t, that is equals to dv dt. So this is the relation for the instantaneous acceleration, right? So similar to that of the instantaneous velocity, ali velocity find ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ acceleration find ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. Common ಏನಂದ್ರೆ particular instant of time, ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು particular instant ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು velocity ಅಥವಾ acceleration find ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ instantaneous velocity and instantaneous acceleration ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ, right? So ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ one more one ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು negative acceleration, or we call that one as the retardation. That means velocity decreasing. So velocity decrease ಆದರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ negative acceleration or retardation. So acceleration ಏನಾಗಬೇಕು ನಮಗೆ decrease ಆಗಬೇಕು. So decrease ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಂತದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ negative or retardation, right? So ಎರಡಕ್ಕೂ same meaning. Negative acceleration ಗೆ one word ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ retardation. So this is about the acceleration. So distance, displacement, speed, velocity and acceleration. So ಎಲ್ಲ types definitions important. So ನೀವು definitions ನ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಅಥವಾ ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂತಿರೋ choice yours, because in ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋದನ್ನು ಇವೇ definitions ಬರುತ್ತೆ. So ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. Acceleration, velocity, speed, differences, scalar vector ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? So next, equations of motion, graphical method. So ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಇಂದ 5 marks ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. So derivation maximum ಕೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ derivation ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So ಈ ಮೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು derivation ನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ derive the relation s is equals to ut plus half a t square using graphical method. In case of graphical method ಅಂತ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ದಲೇ ಇದ್ರು ಕೂಡ you need to derive these relations by using graphical method only. So ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಂಟಿಗ್ರಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲಸ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ, ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದು ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗ್ರಾಫಿಕಲ್ ಮೆಥಡ್. ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಇಂದ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ನ ತೆಗೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಬೈ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ದ ಗ್ರಾಫಿಕಲ್ ಮೆಥಡ್. ಸೊ ಗ್ರಾಫಿಕಲ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಿಟಿ ಗ್ರಾಫ್. ಬೈ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ವಿಟಿ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ದಟ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ one VT graph. So VT graph, drawing velocity along y axis and time along x axis, right? So derive ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ 5 marks ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಯಾವುದು ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗ್ರಾಫ್, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ನ ಅಥವಾ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ನ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ವಿತೌಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ತರದ್ದು ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಫಿಸಿಕ್ಸ್, ಸೊ ನೀವು ಫಿಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ತರಾನೇ ಬರೀಬೇಕು. ಫಿಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ನ ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸ್ ತರ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಸೊ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬರೀಬೇಕು. ವಿತೌಟ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ 0 marks. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮೇನ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ವಿತೌಟ್ ಎನಿ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ನ ನೀವು ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ನ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ 0 marks. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ನೋ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ನೋ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ 0 marks. ಸೊ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ನೀವು ಏನಾದ್ರು ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್. ಸೊ ಏನೋ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬರೆಯೋದಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ವಿತ್ ಲೇಬಲಿಂಗ್. ಲೇಬಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಅಂಡ್ mathematical steps. So three ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ನ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ದಿರೋ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಈ ಮೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ಮಿಸ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೂ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇಲ್ದಲೇ ನೀವು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ 0 marks, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬರೆದು ಅಲ್ಪ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಬರೆದು ಅಲ್ಪ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಪ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬರೀಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 0 marks ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಈಕ್ವೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೋಷನ್ by using graphical method, right? So graphical method ಅಂದ್ರೆ only graph ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ concept. So consider an object moving with some velocity. So that velocity we taken as initial velocity, right? So object considered ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. Object is initially object is moving with some velocity. So that velocity we call as initial velocity. So initial velocity is denoted by u, right? So after certain time, that means the object is moving with uniform acceleration, right? So that means a is constant, right? So uniform acceleration. After some time it covers some displacement, right, in a time t, right? So moving with some velocity v. So v becomes the final velocity and u becomes the initial velocity. A is the acceleration. So acceleration is ಯಾವ acceleration ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, that is the uniform acceleration. So object is moving with some initial velocity, moving with uniform acceleration. After certain time t, it covers the displacement s and its velocity is v, right? So after certain time ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇದು ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ s ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಇದು ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇರುತ್ತೆ, v ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ನ ನಾವು ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇನಿಷಿಯಲಿ ಅಟ್ t 0. ಸೊ 0 ಟೈಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಇನಿಷಿಯಲಿ ದ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ಸಮ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ u. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅಲಾಂಗ್ 0, u. So along x axis ಅಲ್ಲಿ 0, that means time axis ಅಲ್ಲಿ 0 ಇದ್ದಾಗ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ u ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? So next, moving with uniform acceleration. So uniform acceleration ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ we getting a straight line. So straight line ಬರುತ್ತೆ. If initial velocity is 0, then the straight line will pass through the origin. So origin ಇಂದ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು, so ನಾವು origin ಇಂದ ನಾವು ತಗೊಂತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. Initially the object is moving with some velocity. So aduna ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ u. So after certain time t, right? So certain time t ಅಂದ್ರೆ somewhere here. So here to here it covers some time, that is t, right? So after certain time t, its velocity becomes v. So e point alli namage velocity ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ v ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So u is the initial velocity, v is the final velocity. So ಇದಿಷ್ಟನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು explanation ಅಲ್ಲಿ mention ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. So this is the graph. After graph you need to explain. Explain means considered an object moving with initial velocity u after certain moving with the initial velocity u, and it is moving in a uniform acceleration or constant acceleration. After certain time t, it covers the displacement s, and its velocity is final velocity is v. So aduna niಮಗೆ notes ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ, right? So you can go through that one. So explanation ಆಗ್ತಿದಂಗೆ next by using vt graph ಹೇಳಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, so significance of the vt graph. So significance of the vt graph, first significance ಏನು ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ? So slope of the vt graph gives acceleration. So this is the significance of the vt graph. By using the significance we are going to derive the relation, right? So the first significance is slope of the vt graph gives the acceleration. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಲೈನ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಲೈನ್ ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಲೋಪ್ ನ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸ್ಲೋಪ್ ಏನು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ? acceleration of an object or acceleration of the particle. ಆ object the acceleration ನ it represents. So if we plot the slope means yeah. So naming this as O, A, B, C, D, right? So slope means drawing a smaller triangle. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಒಂದು triangle ನ consider ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, that is A, B, C, right? So this gives what? The slope, right? So slope of the vt graph gives what? Acceleration. So that means acceleration is equals to slope, right? So slope is equals to slope is always tan theta. So adu namage maths alli barutte. So illi angle na theta tagondre, so opposite side by adjacent side. So slope m is equals to opposite side by adjacent side. So opposite side is bc divided by adjacent side is ac, right? So this distance is, so O ಇಂದ A ವರೆಗೂ ಇರೋ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ನ ನಾವು ತಗೊಂಡಿರೋದು ಯಾವುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ this distance is u, right? So B ಇಂದ D ವರೆಗೂ ಇರೋ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ, this distance is v. So ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. So BC ಈ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ, so ಟೋಟಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ v ಇದೆ. So v minus u ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ we get the BC, that is v minus u. So ಇದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ, right? After certain time t moving with some velocity v andre, so iduna x axis alli project ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ we get the time. The same will project along y axis means we get the velocity. So that velocity is v, right? So ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಏನು length ಇದೆ, so same length I will written here. So that gives what? v, right? So now theta ಇಲ್ಲಿ consider ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ m is equals to tan theta. Tan theta is equals to opposite by adjacent side, right? So adjacent side AC, so AC is parallel to OD, right? That is BC divided by OD. Because AC ಮತ್ತೆ OD ಎರಡು ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ parallel ಇದೆ. So A ಮತ್ತೆ C between ಏನು distance ಇದೆ ನೋ, O ಮತ್ತೆ D between ಕೂಡ same distance ಇದೆ, right? So BC value ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. So in the LHS acceleration is denoted by A. So BC value ಏನಿದೆ v minus 2 divided by OD, that is T, right? So AT is equals to v minus u. So v is equals to u plus AT. So this is the first equation of motion. So ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಕೇಳಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಈ 3 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ so ಒಂದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಸೊ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ ಅದರ್ 2 ಕೂಡ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಡಿ. ಸೊ ಈ ಮೂರು ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ ಗೂ ಸೇಮ್ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್, ಬಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, right? So we get the first relation V is equals to U plus AT. Next, by using the second significance of the VT graph, right? So area under the curve gives the displacement. So that is the second significance of the VT graph, right? So second significance of the VT graph is area under the curve. So area under the curve means area below the line AB. So this line in the area. So our area gives what? The displacement, right? So from this we can write displacement is equals to area. So areas are considered model starts from O, A, B, C, D, right? O, A, B, C, D. So ನಿಮಗೆ trapezium formula ನೆನಪಿತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ directly you can substitute the trapezium formula or you can split into two. So one is area of triangle and another one is area of rectangle. So ಈ diagram clear ಆಗಿ ಕಾಣ್ತಿದೆ. ABC is the triangle and OACD is the rectangle, right? So split the area into two. That is area of triangle ABC plus area of rectangle OACD. So ಎರಡು area na add ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ we get the total area OABD, right? So displacement is denoted by S, that is equals to area of triangle ABC. So area of triangle is half into base into height. So base is AC, height is BC, right? So half into AC into BC plus area of the rectangle. So length into breadth. So length is OD, breadth is OD into OA, right? So now substituting the values of AC. So AC is that is equals to OD P into BC is B minus U plus again OD is P into OA is U, right? So V minus U, from the first relation we can write V minus U as AT. So from first relation V minus U na navena baribodu AT anta baribodu, right? So 1/2 into T into AT plus UT. So idana simplify madidre S is equals to UT plus half AT square. So this gives what the second equation of motion, right? So S is equals to UT plus half AT square. This is this side I work on that. AT is equals to B minus U. That is from the first relation. Or equation ಬರೆದು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು substitute ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, right? So one significance ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ important. So ಇದನ್ನ ಬರೆದ್ರೇನೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ meaning ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Acceleration is equals to slope. So you need to write this statement. Slope of the VT graph gives what? Acceleration. So E derive ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ area under the curve gives what? The displacement. So ಈ statement ಬರೆದು steps continue ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಈ main statement ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ನೀವು marks ಕಳ್ಕೊಂತೀರಾ. Because 5 marks ಇದೆ. So simple derivation practice ಮಾಡಿ. So ತುಂಬಾ repeat ಆಗಿರೋ derivations ಇದೆ, right? So and the last one is V square minus U square is equals to 2AS, right? So from the first equation V minus U is equals to AD. So this is from first, right? So first equation in the now ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದು V minus U is equals to AD. So keeping as is V minus U is equals to AD. We call this one as second equation, right? So now finding the average velocity between point A to point B. Now we are going to find the average velocity between A and B. So average velocity in terms of velocities now find out madidre at A we have the velocity U and at B we have the velocity V, right? So average velocity V bar that is equals to average velocity v bar that is equal to the air velocities, one is u, another one is v. So in place of v1 we can write u, and in place of v2 we can write v, that is u plus v divided by 2, right? So calling this one as third equation, right? So we have the average velocity. So displacement covered average velocity ke another form in baribodu, average velocity is equals to displacement by time. So displacement is denoted by s. So s is equals to v bar into time t, right? So v bar here from the second relation we can write s is equals to v plus u divided by 2 into t, right? So rearranging the terms, v plus u is equals to 2s divided by t. So calling this one as fourth equation, right? So in terms na replace madidre v plus u, so 2 LHS goes like 2s divided by t. So multiplying equation 2 and 4. Multiply equation 2 and 4. So LHS the LHS jotege RHS jotege, right? So v minus u into v plus u, that is equals to 80 into, so RHS ali 2s divided by t. So in the numerator t, in the denominator t get cancels. So this is in the form of a minus b into a plus b, or a plus b into a minus b, so that we can write v square minus u square, that is a square minus b square formula is a minus b into a plus b, or a plus b into a minus b, right? So v square minus u square, that is equals to 2as. So we get the final relation, v square minus u square is equals to 2as, right? So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು average velocity ಇದು ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. So ಯಾವ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತಿದೀವಿ, average velocity. So here we getting the displacement in terms of average velocity. So displacement is equals to average velocity into time. So substituting here we need to write, so from, so this is the derivation in graphical method, right? So graphical method ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದನ್ನ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಿ. So ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ diagram explanation ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ same, right? So again in this last we have one topic, that is relative velocity. So velocity of an object with respect to the another object, so that type of velocity we call as the relative velocity. So what is relative velocity and the definition alli kelidre, so idರಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ derivation ಇಲ್ಲ relative velocity ಗೆ, but regular class ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು derive ಮಾಡಿ explain ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. So ನಿಮಗೆ exam purpose ಗೆ derivation ಇಲ್ಲ, so definition important. So what is relative velocity? Is velocity of an object with respect to the another object, so that velocity we call as relative velocity. That means if we have the two objects A and B, then the relative velocity of A with respect to B, we denote that one as VAB. That means velocity of A with respect to B, that is equals to VA minus VB. So this is the mathematical relation for the relative velocity, right? So same, the velocity of B with respect to A, that we write VBA. Velocity of B with respect to A, that is equals to velocity of B with respect to origin or with respect to ground minus velocity of A with respect to origin or with respect to ground. So VA ಮತ್ತೆ VAB ಗೆ ಎರಡಕ್ಕೂ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ we are measuring the velocity of one object with respect to the another object. Here we are measuring the velocity with respect to the reference. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ previous ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲ example consider ಮಾಡಿರೋದು with respect to origin ಅಂತ consider ಮಾಡಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲಿ velocity of the origin ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ 0 ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So hence we taken VAO ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ velocity of A with respect to origin 0 ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ directly we write VA minus VB, right? So these are the two relations in relative velocity. So by this we completed the chapter motion in a straight line. So motion in a straight line ali maximum definitions, differences between, and for 5 marks it is very ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಈ ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದು ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ 5 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ 7 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ 5 ಪ್ಲಸ್ 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳೋ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಕೇಳಬೇಕು ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ 5 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಐದರ್ ದೇ ಮೇ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆರ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್. ಸೊ ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದು ಈ ಮೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಕೇಳೋದು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಅಥವಾ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್. ಸೊ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್ ರೇರ್ ಕೇಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳೋದು, ಬಟ್ s is equals to ut plus half at square ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್. ಸೊ 5 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ನಮಗೆ ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಮೋರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್. ಸೊ 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಓದ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಓದಿರ್ತೀರಾ, ಸೊ ಈಸಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ನೀವು 7 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ನ ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಇಂದ ತಗೋಬಹುದು, ರೈಟ್? ಅದು ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. So I think all topics we have covered in this chapter. So graphs ittu, so 2 marks ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ graphs ಕೇಳೋ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಬಟ್ graphs ನ ರಿಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ so again they will ask for the differences. So ಉಳಿದಿರೋದವರಿಗೆ differences ಅಥವಾ definition. So definition 2 marks ಗೆ ಕೇಳೋ definition ಯಾವುದು ಇಲ್ಲ, so ಹಂಗಾಗಿ differences ಮೇಲೆ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಟೈಮ್ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ನ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡೆ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಪ್ಲೇನ್. ಸೊ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಸ್ಕೇಲರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್. So scalars and vectors ಅಂದ್ರೆ scalar is a physical quantity which having only the magnitude. So vectors is a physical quantity which having both the magnitude and direction, and it obeys the vector algebra or vector method of addition, right? So idu kuda tumba important for 2 marks or 3 marks. Write the differences between the scalars and vectors. So scalars and vectors ke differences baribeku again definition, right? So scalars matte vectors ke definition. Next example. So example for scalars and vectors. So ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ previous chapter ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದಂಗೆ scalars ಗೆ example distance ಇದೆ ಮತ್ತೆ speed ಇದೆ. So vectors ಗೆ example ಅಂದ್ರೆ velocity ಇದೆ, displacement ಇದೆ, acceleration ಇದೆ. So ಈ 2 chapters ಅಲ್ಲಿ examples ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಇಷ್ಟು. Next loss of motion, work over energy ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ examples add ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ definition ಮತ್ತೆ example, right? So next one more point, maximum 3 marks ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ one more point, it obeys the ordinary algebra. So scalars ಅಲ್ಲಿ ordinary algebra, right? Ordinary algebra is nothing but basic addition, multiplication, subtraction and division, right? So in vectors, so definition ಆಯ್ತು, example ಆಯ್ತು. So in vectors it obeys the vector algebra, right? So vector algebra dalli again addition irutte, subtraction irutte, multiplication irutte, but here we don't have any division. So one vector by another vector illa only we have addition of vectors, subtraction of vectors and multiplication of vectors. So ordinary algebra dalli we have all the 4: addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. So idu nimge difference gothirbeku, vector algebra matte ordinary algebra eradu same alla, both are different. So hence we consider this under the differences between scalars and vectors. So in case 3 marks kelidre ee 3 points tumba important, right? So next studies hole points add agutte, but up to now these are the basic differences between scalars and vectors. So maximum cover ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು vectors. So vectors ke definition, it has both the magnitude and direction and it obeys the vector law of addition, right? So that gives what the definition of vectors. So next scalars na isla namge differences study ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. So vectors ಅಲ್ಲಿ types, so important ಈ types of vectors ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So definition ಕೇಳಬಹುದು ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ ಒಂದು types of vectors. So types of vectors ಅಲ್ಲಿ starts from like vectors, unlike vector. So ಎರಡನ್ನು ಒಂದಲ್ಲ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ, like vector, unlike vector. So next parallel, anti parallel, like that is parallel vectors and anti-parallel vectors. So next magnitude and same direction, so that vector we call as like vector. So unlike vectors means so equal magnitude or opposite direction, or opposite same direction opposite opposite magnitude iralla. So same direction but unequal magnitude. So antadunna ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ unlike vectors ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. So like vectors ಅಂದ್ರೆ both vectors having the same direction and same magnitude. So unlike vector means so direction opposite, magnitude vary. So that we call as the unlike vector, right? So next the parallel vector. So parallel vector, both vectors having the same direction. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ magnitude same ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ different ಇರಬಹುದು. So ಒಂದು lesser magnitude ಇರಬಹುದು, ಒಂದು bigger magnitude ಇರಬಹುದು. So ಅಂತ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ parallel vector. So similarly anti-parallel vectors, so opposite direction, magnitude either may be same or may different. So magnitude of the two vectors same ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ different ಇರಬಹುದು. So ಅಂತ vectors ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ anti-parallel, but direction ಏನಿರಬೇಕು opposite to one another, right? So next collinear. Collinear means collinear or co-initial vectors, two or more vectors which are starts from a same point, then that type of vectors are called co-linear or co-initial vectors, right? So here vector A, vector B, vector C, both are starts from same point. So this type of vectors we call as co-initial vectors or co-linear vectors, right? So ಎರಡನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ same name ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕರೆಯೋದ್ರಿಂದ collinear or co-initial. So its initial point is same. So that type of vector are called co-initial or collinear vectors. So next is coplanar vectors, two or more vectors which are lying in a same plane. So same plane means two axes, that is coordinate axis x and y. So two vectors kuda namage vector A, we both are lying in the same plane. So anta vectors na ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ coplanar vectors, right? So and the orthogonal vectors are two or more vectors which are perpendicular to one another. That means angle between the two vectors is always 90 degrees. So that type of vectors we call as orthogonal vectors, right? So next null vector. So null vector, its magnitude is 0. So vector under it has both the magnitude and direction. So here in null vector its magnitude is 0, hence this vector we call as null vector. So null vector is represented by 0 over the arrow mark. So 0 over the arrow mark represent module, it gives what the null vector. So if we multiply any value with the null vector, so again we getting the null vector, right? So it has no direction. So ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ direction ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. So we call magnitude is 0. So magnitude 0 ಇದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ null vector, right? So next unit vector. Unit vector, vector which having unit magnitude, that means the magnitude of a vector is 1 unit. So magnitude of vector ಎಷ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ 1 ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So ಅಂತ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ unit vector. So the name itself it indicates it has unit magnitude. That means the magnitude of any vector having the value 1, so that vector we call as unit vector. So ಇದೊಂದು important. So null vector ಗೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ unit vector is more important. Mathematical form of the unit vector is always denoted by any letter with the cap. A cap, B cap, C cap. So ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ ಬರ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ cap represent ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ it gives what the unit vector. So significance of the unit vector is it gives the direction. So significance of the unit vector is it gives the direction. So unit vector ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ direction ನ represent ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ unit vector ನ ನಾವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ. That means A cap, B cap. So any letters with an cap, right? So mathematical relation for the unit vector A cap is equals to vector A divided by A. So ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ important, that is mathematical relation. So unit vector ಅಲ್ಲಿ definition ಜೊತೆಗೆ mathematical relation. Mathematical relation is A cap that is equals to vector A by A, right? So orthogonal vectors, the orthogonal unit vectors, we have 3 unit vectors, that is I cap, J cap, K cap. So these are the unit vectors which represents the direction along x axis, y axis and z axis. ಸೊ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ x ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ರ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ ನಾವು ಯಾವ್ದ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ i ಕ್ಯಾಪ್. ಸೊ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ y ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಯಾವ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತಿದೀವಿ j ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ ಅಂಡ್ z by k ಕ್ಯಾಪ್. ಸೊ ಇದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ i ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ j ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ k ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ are the unit vectors which gives the direction along x axis. ಸೊ ಇದು x axis ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ vector a is equals to ai cap, vector b is equals to bj cap. So if it is z axis, so the vector c to andre c is equals to c k cap, right? So a gives what magnitude, I cap gives what the direction. So again that is equals to the vector e, right? So this is about the unit vector. So next, position vector. So any vector which represents the position of a particle, so that we call as the position vector. So ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸೊ ಅಂತ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್. ಸೊ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇಸ್ ಡಿಫೈನ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ it gives the position of a particle with respect to the origin. So ಯಾವುದು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ with respect ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ with respect to origin ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So position vector is always denoted by vector r. Vector r gives for the position of a particle. So if it is in one dimension, then vector r is equals to xi cap or yj cap or zk cap. So ಈ ಮೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಇರಬಹುದು one dimension ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ if the position of a particle is in plane, then you can write xi cap plus yj cap. So if the particle is in space, three dimension, that is vector r is equals to xi cap plus yj cap plus zk cap. So here we are going to study only about the position of a particle in plane. Plane means two dimension. So chapter we are going to discuss motion in a plane. So that means in two dimension. So we represent the position vector r is equals to always xi cap plus yj cap, right? So next, displacement vector. So it gives the any vector which gives the shortest distance between the 2 points or 2 positions of the vector. So that we call as the displacement vector, right? So shortest distance between the two vectors or 2 points. So here we have 2 points A and B, right? So to find the displacement vector, first we need to draw the position vector. First we need to draw the position vector for A, so that becomes RA. So and position vector of B, that becomes RB, right? So displacement vector is denoted by S. So vector S is equals to so vector RA RB minus vector RA. So this gives what the mathematical form for the displacement vector, right? So this is about the types of vectors. So these two types of vectors. So these two types of vector are very important: unit vector, position vector, displacement vector, and null vector. So definitions ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ನಾಲ್ಕರಲ್ಲೇ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ definitions ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದು next topics ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ just study ಮಾಡೋದು. So sometimes give the mathematical relation for unit vector and you need to write the formula for the unit vector, right? So define another definition, mathematical relation and mathematical expression. So next one we do vector algebra. So vector algebra dalli we have vector law of addition. So vector law of addition alli namge two types of addition, that is addition of two vectors. So two vectors na add ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ we have two laws. One is triangle law of vector addition. So another one is parallelogram, right? So So ಎರಡು ಲಾ ಇದೆ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಲಾ ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ. One is triangle law of vector addition and another one is parallelogram law of vector addition. So we have two vectors, so we need to add these two vectors. One is vector A and another one is vector B. So ಈ ಎರಡು ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ so normal ordinary algebra use ಮಾಡಿ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. So ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರನೇ we introduce the two laws. One is triangle law and another one is parallelogram law. So triangle law of addition ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ so statement ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಎರಡರದ್ದು. So either 2 marks ಅಥವಾ 3 marks ಗೆ very important. So only statement ನೇ ನಮಗೆ 2 marks ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. State and explain triangle of addition ಅಂದ್ರೆ so diagram ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು explain ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. So explain ಅಂದ್ರೆ two diagrams ಬರೆದು final add ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಏನು ಇರುತ್ತೆ ರಿಲೇಶನ್ ಅದನ್ನ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. So ಅದಕ್ಕೆ 3 ಈ ಎರಡರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವಾದರೂ ಒಂದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? So statement ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. So statement if the two vectors representing the two sides of a triangle. So ಎರಡು ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. So ಎರಡು ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನ ನಾವು ಯಾವ ತರ ತಗೊಂತಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ two sides of the triangle taken in an order. Taken in an order means the tail end of one vector is added to the head end of the other vector. So that becomes the two vectors which represents the magnitude and direction of the two vectors taken in an order. Then the third side of a triangle gives the resultant which is taken in the reverse order. So reverse order means in this direction. So this gives what the resultant. So vector C is equals to vector A plus vector B, right? So vector C is equals to vector A plus vector B. Two sides of a triangle taken in an order representing the magnitude and direction, right? So the resultant gives the third side of a triangle which is taken in the reverse order. So ಎರಡು vectors ನ ನಾವು anti-clockwise direction ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ one vector ನ clockwise direction ತಗೊಂತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಟ್ರಯಾಂಗಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. So ಆ clockwise direction ತಗೊಂಡಿರೋದು ನಮಗೆ ಏನು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ resultant ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. So addition of two vectors gives what the resultant of two vectors and it gives both the magnitude and direction. So magnitude length vary ಆಗಿದೆ ಜೊತೆಗೆ direction of the resultant ಕೂಡ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ vary ಆಗಿದೆ. So that is the triangle of vector addition, right? So statement important. So statement lengthy ಇದೆ but so each and every point ಕೂಡ clear ಆಗಿ mention ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, right? So next parallelogram law of vector addition, right? So two vectors representing the magnitude and direction of the two sides of a parallelogram. So your two sides adjacent sides of a parallelogram, that means those two are the co-initial vectors. So vector A and vector B. So in this case tail end of one vector is added to the another tail end of the vector. So vector B na illi add ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, vector A ಗೆ add ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. So at the point e point ಇಂದ ನಾವು ನೇಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ O. So O in the vector A ಇದೆ, O in the vector B, then these two vectors becomes collinear or co-initial vectors. So starts from single point. So these two represents the two adjacent sides of a parallelogram. That means we need to complete this parallelogram by drawing the vector parallel to vector A. So e vector ಗೆ parallel ಆಗಿ one vector draw ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತಿದೀವಿ. Same wise vector B ಗೆ parallel ಆಗಿ one vector we are going to draw, that is vector B, right? So diagonal of the parallelogram. So ಇದು ಯಾವ shape ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣ್ತಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ parallelogram shape ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣ್ತಿದೆ. So diagonal of the parallelogram gives the resultant, right? So this is again vector C, that is equals to vector A plus vector B. So triangle of vector addition is similar to that of the parallelogram law of vector addition. So observe ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎರಡು resultant direction ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಇದೆ ಬಟ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು ಏನಿದೆ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು tail end ನ head end ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಟ್ರಯಾಂಗಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Again the tail end is joined with the another tail end, then the parallelogram will be formed. So diagonal of the parallelogram gives what the resultant of the two vectors. So it has both the magnitude and direction. So ಇದಕ್ಕೆ magnitude ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಜೊತೆಗೆ direction ಕೂಡ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So statements ತುಂಬಾ important, right? So next ಇದರಲ್ಲೇನೆ ನಮಗೆ important is 5 marks to find the magnitude and direction of resultant of two vectors. So two vectors get now add model we get the resultant and magnitude, right? So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ before going to this we have one more concept, that is resolution of vectors. So any vector we can resolve into its components along the horizontal and along the vertical. So vector b ನ ನಾವು resolve ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ along horizontal and vertical, so ಅಂತದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, resolution of vectors. So vector is split into two other vectors, right? So if vector b is making an angle theta with the horizontal, then we get the component of vector along horizontal, so that is b cos theta. So in the same way we get the component of vector along vertical, that is b sin theta, right? So namge b cos theta is the component along the horizontal and the b sin theta along the vertical. So ಎರಡು component ಬರುತ್ತೆ, one is along horizontal and along vertical, right? So this we call as components of vector. Any vector na ನಾವು resolve ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ we are always having the two components. So ಅದನ್ನು 1 marks ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು ನಮಗೆ. Write the components of vector means, so any vector if we resolve we get the two components. So one is horizontal component and another one is vertical component. So horizontal component is b cos theta, vertical component is b sin theta. So that is always depends on angle theta. If the theta is inclined with the vertical, so then vertical become b cos theta, so horizontal become b sin theta. So theta ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ horizontal ಮತ್ತೆ vertical component, right? So let's derive the relation. So same by using the parallelogram. So ಇದನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು derive ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, so diagram same ಇದೆ. So in place of c we can write this one as result, because we are going to derive the relation. So again by drawing the diagram, explaining considering two vectors adjacent side to each other and completing the parallelogram, the diagonal of the parallelogram gives the resultant, right? So naming O, A, B, C, right? So draw or extended the perpendicular, draw the perpendicular from B on the extended vector A. So A vector na extend ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು, so ಇದು perpendicular ಅಂದ್ರೆ always straight line ಇರಬೇಕು, right? So that means here we getting the angle 90 degree. So along CA is again it is a vector A. So this is angle theta, angle between the two vectors we can take theta. So ಯಾವುದು ಎರಡು ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇದೆ, ಆ ಎರಡು ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಮಧ್ಯದ angle ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಎಷ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ, theta ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? So from triangle OBA, sorry here D, from triangle OBD. So ಇದನ್ನ naming as you wish, ಏನು ಬೇಕಾದರೂ namings ಕೊಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, but don't confuse, right? So this is in the right angle triangle. So ಈ triangle ನ further ಈ ತರ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, OBD and we have C. So magnitude A is theta. So ಇದು ನಮಗೆ triangle OBD. So ಇದನ್ನ ಇಲ್ಲಿ extend ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ, right? So from this triangle this is what the resultant R. So I am splitting this angle theta, that is vector, ಯಾವ vector ಇದೆ ನಮಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ vector B. So vector B now splitting along its horizontal and along vertical. So horizontal we getting B cos theta and the same way vertical B sin theta. So this B sin theta is equals to BD. So we can write that one as B sin theta. So the distance between B and D point is B sin theta, and the distance between C and D point is B cos theta, right? So from the Pythagoras theorem we can write OB square, that is equals to OD square plus BD square, right? So OD is the total length from O to D. So OD we can write A plus B cos square plus BD is B sin theta whole square. So OB is R square, that is resultant of vector, right? So R square, that is equals to expanding A plus B whole square formula. So we getting A square plus B square cos square theta plus 2AB cos theta. So again here B square sin square theta. So from this b square cos square theta, b square sin square theta, we can take b square as common, right? So r square is equals to a square plus b square into cos square theta plus sin square theta. From the trigonometry, the value is 1. 1 into b square is b square plus 2ab cos theta, right? So resultant r is equals to under square root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos theta. So this gives what? The magnitude of the resultant. So this is also very important for 5 marks. So 5 marks में derivation ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So derive the relation for the magnitude and direction of a vector, right? So r is equals to square root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos theta gives the magnitude of the vector, right? So direction. So this resultant makes an angle alpha with the horizontal. So angles representing what? The direction of a vector, right? So again from the same triangle, from the triangle OBD, tan alpha. So trigonometry, tan theta, that is equals to opposite side by adjacent side. So opposite side is BD, adjacent side is OD. So BD is, the value is B sin theta, and the adjacent side OD value is A plus B cos theta, right? So alpha is equals to, we can write tan inverse of B sin theta divided by A plus B cos theta, right? So usually the cases when is r is minimum. So when r is maximum means when this value cos theta value is 1. So cos theta value ಯಾವಾಗ 1 ಇರುತ್ತೆ? When the two vectors are parallel. So two vectors are parallel means vector A and vector B both are in a same direction, then we getting angle theta that is equals to 0. So parallel idaga theta value enirutte 0 irutte. So cos 0 is 1. So 1 into 2ab is 2ab. So this is in the form of a square plus b square plus 2ab. That is in the form of a plus b whole square. So square and square will get cancelled. So we get r is equals to a plus b. That is the maximum value. So 1 marks it keltirtare. When is the resultant of vector is maximum? So condition we need to write is when theta is equals to 0 degree or two vectors are in parallel, then we getting r value is maximum, right? So when we get minimum, when the two vectors are anti-parallel, right? So vector A, vector B, this theta is equals to 180 degree. So anti-parallel means opposite, that is theta is equals to 180 degree. Right? So cos 180 is minus 1, so minus 2ab. So a square plus b square minus 2ab is in the form of a minus b whole square. So square and so these are the special cases. So minus ಯಾವಾಗ ಬರುತ್ತೆ? Two vectors anti-parallel ಇದ್ರೆ plus ಯಾವಾಗ ಬರುತ್ತೆ? Two vectors parallel ಇದ್ರೆ. So maximum and minimum, right? This is all about the vectors. So ನಾನು ಇದ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆಫ್ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್. ಸೊ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್. ಸೊ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಎರಡು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್. ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಮೋಷನ್. So next another one is circular motion, uniform circular motion. So these are the two examples for motion in two dimensions, right? So this ಇದು ಕೂಡ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ನಾಳೆ ಟೈಮ್ ಸಿಕ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ರೀಕಾಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ. ಸೊ ಎನಿ ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಮೀ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ನಾಳೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಈ ಎರಡು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಎರಡನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿ. ಸೊ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಏನಾದರೂ ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.